Victoria Sterling slammed the folder onto her desk so hard the coffee cup rattled. "I've been watching you for 8 months, Mr. Thompson. I know your daughter is dying. I know you have $247 in your bank account, and I know you'd do anything to save her." Marcus Thompson stood frozen in the billionaire's office, his janitor uniform still damp with sweat. "What do you want from me?" Victoria walked around the desk, stopping inches from his face. "I want you to give me a child. In return, I'll give your daughter a new heart." Marcus felt his knees buckle. This woman had orchestrated everything: the accelerated diagnosis, the impossible timeline, the hopeless debt. She hadn't found him by accident. She had hunted him. Comment below what city you're watching from so I can see how far this story travels. "Say that again." Marcus's voice came out hoarse, broken. His hands gripped the armrests of the leather chair so tight his knuckles turned white. Victoria Sterling didn't blink. "You heard me perfectly, Mr. Thompson. I don't repeat myself. You want me to get you pregnant?" "Correct. And in exchange, you'll pay for my daughter's surgery." "Also correct." "That's insane." "That's business." Victoria walked back to her desk, her heels clicking against the hardwood floor like a metronome counting down to something terrible. "I have a problem. You have a problem. I'm proposing a solution that benefits us both." Marcus stood up so fast, the chair scraped against the floor. "Lady, I don't know what kind of sick game you're playing, but I'm not—" "Sit down, Mr. Thompson." Her voice cut through the room like a blade. Cold. Absolute. The voice of someone who had never been told no. Marcus didn't sit. "Your daughter has 19 days. Victoria opened the folder on her desk. 19 days before her heart fails completely. The surgery she needs costs $287,000. You make $14.50 an hour. You have no savings, no collateral, no assets. Your ex-wife, Keisha, hasn't returned your calls in 14 months. Your mother, Ruth, is 71 years old, with stage 2 Parkinson's and a fixed income of $247 per month." She looked up at him. "Would you like me to continue?" Marcus felt the blood drain from his face. "How do you know all that?" "I know everything, Mr. Thompson. That's what $2 billion buys you. Information, access, control." Victoria closed the folder. "Now sit down. We have business to discuss." This time Marcus sat. "Why me?" The question hung in the air between them. Victoria stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, looking out at the Atlanta skyline like she owned it. Which in many ways, she did. "Because you're useful." "Useful how I'm a janitor." "You're honest." Victoria turned around. "Do you have any idea how rare that is in my world? Honest men don't exist. They pretend to be honest until they see the size of my bank account, and then they become liars, thieves, predators." She walked toward him slowly, her blue eyes never leaving his face. "I've been engaged 3 times, Mr. Thompson. The first one was embezzling from his own clients. The second was sleeping with my assistant. The third—" She paused. Something flickered across her face. Pain. Old pain. "The third had a prenuptial agreement hidden in his briefcase. His lawyer drafted it. If I'd signed it, he would have owned 30% of my company within 5 years. That's not my problem. No. But it explains why I'm standing here offering you $250,000 to impregnate me instead of hiring a surrogate or visiting a sperm bank like a normal person." Marcus shook his head. "You're out of your mind." "Possibly. But I'm also out of time." Victoria sat on the edge of her desk, arms crossed. "I'm 43 years old. I've had 2 miscarriages. My doctors say this is my last window. 1 year, maybe less, before my body decides the question for me permanently. So go to a fertility clinic." "I did. 4 times. It doesn't work for me." Her jaw tightened. "I need to conceive naturally. And I need a father who has no interest in my money, my company, or my name. A father who will take his payment and disappear. A father who has too much to lose to ever become a threat. She leaned forward. A father exactly like you. Marcus's phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out. The hospital. His heart seized. Answer it, Victoria said. I'll wait. Marcus pressed the phone to his ear with trembling hands. Hello? Mr. Thompson, this is Nurse Bradley from Children's Health Care. We need you to come in tomorrow morning to sign some consent forms for Destiny's upcoming procedure. What procedure? I haven't agreed to any procedure. A pause. Sir, our records show that a benefactor has already covered the cost of your daughter's surgery. The operation is scheduled for... Wait. Marcus's blood went cold. What benefactor? Who paid? Another pause. I'm not authorized to disclose that information, Mr. Thompson. But the payment cleared this morning. Your daughter's surgery is fully funded. Marcus looked up at Victoria. She was smiling. I'll call you back. He hung up. You already paid, Marcus said. His voice was barely a whisper. Before I even agreed. You already paid for the surgery. I like to negotiate from a position of strength. That's not negotiation. That's manipulation. Victoria shrugged. Call it what you want. The result is the same. Your daughter gets a new heart. I get what I want. Everyone wins. And if I say no, if I walk out of here right now, Victoria's smile disappeared. Then I make one phone call and the payment is reversed. The surgery is canceled. And in 19 days, you'll be planning a funeral instead of a birthday party. The words hit Marcus like a punch to the gut. You would do that. You would let a 6-year-old girl die to get what you want. I would let 1,000 6-year-old girls die to get what I want, Mr. Thompson. That's what it takes to run a $2 billion company. That's what it takes to survive in a world designed to destroy women like me. Victoria stood up. I'm not a good person. I've never pretended to be. But I'm offering you a deal that saves your daughter's life. The only question is whether your pride is worth more than her future. Marcus drove home in a daze. The Atlanta streets blurred past his window. Red lights, green lights, honking horns. None of it registered. All he could see was Victoria Sterling's face. Those cold blue eyes. That predator's smile. She had trapped him. Perfectly. Completely. Every move calculated, every exit blocked. If he said yes, he was selling himself, his body, his dignity, everything he believed a man should be. If he said no, Destiny would die. He pulled into the parking lot of his apartment complex, a crumbling 3-story building on the east side of Atlanta, where the streetlights didn't work and the neighbors minded their own business. He sat in the car for a long time, hands on the steering wheel, staring at nothing. His father's voice echoed in his head. Something Harold Thompson had said 1,000 times before he died. A man's word is his bond, son. You make a promise, you keep it. You give your word, you honor it. That's what separates us from animals. But Harold Thompson had died in a county hospital with a plastic tube down his throat and a bill his family couldn't pay. He'd died honorable and broke. He'd died principled and alone. What good was honor if it couldn't save his daughter? Marcus got out of the car and walked upstairs. Ruth was sitting in the kitchen when he came in. She was peeling potatoes, her trembling hands moving slowly but steadily. The smell of something cooking filled the small apartment. Collard greens maybe, or black-eyed peas. Comfort food. The kind she made when she knew something was wrong. You're home early, she said without looking up. Mama, we need to talk. Ruth set down the potato and the knife. She looked at her son. Really looked at him, and her face changed. What happened? Marcus sat down across from her. He told her everything. The phone call, Victoria Sterling, the offer, the threat, all of it. When he finished, Ruth was silent for a long time. This woman, she finally said. She already paid for Destiny's surgery. Yes, ma'am. Before you agreed to anything? Yes, ma'am. Ruth shook her head slowly. That's not generosity. That's a trap. I know. She's using your baby girl as leverage, using your love against you. I know, Mama. Ruth reached across the table and took her son's hands. Her fingers were warm despite the trembling. Marcus, look at me. He looked. Your father was the best man I ever knew. Honest, hardworking, proud. He never took a handout, never bent a rule, never compromised who he was for anyone or anything. Tears glistened in Ruth's eyes. And he died in a hospital bed begging God for one more day, one more hour, just enough time to see you graduate to meet his granddaughter. Her voice cracked. God didn't answer, and I had to watch my husband, my best friend, close his eyes knowing he'd failed, knowing that all his principles and all his pride couldn't buy him 5 more minutes with the people he loved. Mama, I'm not finished. Ruth squeezed his hands tighter. I loved your father. I'm proud of who he was. But if I'm being honest, if I'm being really honest, sometimes I wonder if things would have been different. If he'd been a little more flexible, a little more willing to bend. You're saying I should do it. I'm saying that little girl in that hospital bed is all we have left. She's the last piece of your father, the last piece of you. And if some rich white woman wants to pay a fortune to have your baby, then maybe... Ruth's voice broke. Maybe God is answering a prayer we were too afraid to pray. Marcus pulled his hands away. It's not that simple. Nothing is ever simple, baby. That's what life is. A million complicated choices that don't have right answers. You just pick the one you can live with and pray it doesn't destroy you. And if it does destroy me... Ruth stood up, walked around the table and wrapped her arms around her son. She held him the way she used to when he was small, when he would come home from school with scraped knees and bruised feelings. Then you'll still have destiny, she whispered. And that's more than a lot of fathers can say. Marcus went to the hospital the next morning. He told himself he was going to see Destiny, to hold her hand, to tell her everything would be okay. But deep down, he knew the real reason. He needed to see her face before he made his decision. Destiny was awake when he walked in. She was sitting up in bed watching cartoons on the small television mounted to the wall. When she saw her father, her whole face lit up. Daddy. Hey, princess. Marcus sat on the edge of her bed and kissed her forehead. How you feeling? Good. The nurse said I'm getting an operation soon. She said it's gonna fix my heart. That's right, baby. Are you scared, Daddy? The question caught Marcus off guard. Why would I be scared? Because your face looks scared. Destiny reached up and touched his cheek with her tiny hand. It's okay to be scared. I'm scared too sometimes. But then I remember what you told me. What did I tell you? That being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you do the hard thing anyway. Marcus felt his eyes burn. This 6-year-old girl, his 6-year-old girl, was teaching him about courage. You're right, princess. That is what brave means. So you'll be brave? Yeah, baby. Marcus pulled her into a hug, holding her tight, memorizing the feel of her small body against his chest. Daddy's gonna be brave. He called Victoria that afternoon. I'm in. 3 seconds of silence. Good. I'll send a car for you tomorrow morning. We have paperwork to discuss. I have conditions. Another pause. Longer this time. I'm listening. First, Destiny's surgery happens no matter what. Even if something goes wrong between us. Even if I can't. He couldn't finish the sentence. She gets her operation. Period. Agreed. Second, my mother gets taken care of. Medical coverage. A place to live near the hospital. Whatever she needs. Agreed. Third, when this is over, I walk away clean. No lawsuits. No threats. No contact unless I initiate it. My daughter never finds out what I did. Ever. Mr. Thompson. Victoria's voice was almost amused. I have no interest in maintaining a relationship with you. You're a means to an end. Once I have what I want, you'll be free to return to your life as if none of this ever happened. Then we have a deal. We have a deal. A pause. And Mr. Thompson, yeah. Thank you for being reasonable. I knew I chose correctly. The line went dead. Marcus stood there, phone in hand, staring at the wall of his apartment. What had he just done? The next 3 days blurred together. Lawyers, documents, medical examinations, non-disclosure agreements thick enough to stop a bullet. Marcus signed everything they put in front of him. He didn't read the fine print. What was the point? Victoria held all the cards. She could put anything in those contracts and he'd still have to sign. He moved into the mansion on Thursday. Victoria's house wasn't a house. It was a monument. 12 bedrooms, 8 bathrooms, a pool the size of his entire apartment. Staff members who called him Sir and looked at him like they knew exactly what he was there for. His room was on the 2nd floor. Bigger than any place he'd ever lived. King-size bed, private bathroom, a closet full of new clothes, his size, his style tags still on. Victoria had thought of everything. That first night, Marcus lay awake until 3 a.m., staring at the ceiling, wondering if he'd made the worst mistake of his life. He saw Victoria the next morning in the kitchen. She was sitting at the breakfast table reading something on her tablet, a cup of black coffee in front of her. She didn't look up when he walked in. There's food in the refrigerator. Margaret can cook whatever you want. I'm not hungry. Suit yourself. She kept reading. Dr. Harrison will be here at 2 for your medical examination. Full physical, blood work, the usual. The usual. I need to confirm you're healthy. No genetic diseases, no STDs, no hidden conditions that could complicate the pregnancy. Marcus poured himself a glass of water. You really thought of everything, didn't you? I think of everything, Mr. Thompson. That's why I'm a billionaire and you're a janitor. The words stung. Marcus set down the glass harder than necessary. You know, just because you're paying me doesn't give you the right to talk to me like I'm nothing. Victoria finally looked up. Her blue eyes met his. You're not nothing, Mr. Thompson. You're exactly what I need. And that makes you valuable. But don't mistake value for equality. We are not equals. We will never be equals. The sooner you accept that, the easier this will be for both of us. Marcus wanted to argue. Wanted to tell her that money didn't make her better than him. That dignity wasn't something you could buy or sell. But he didn't. Because she was right. They weren't equals. And they never would be. The medical examination took 4 hours. Dr. Harrison Cole was a thin man in his 60s with silver hair and a face that revealed nothing. He drew blood, checked reflexes, asked questions about Marcus's family history, his diet, his exercise routine, his sexual history. Marcus answered everything truthfully. What was the point of lying? When it was over, Dr. Harrison packed up his equipment and looked at Marcus with something that might have been sympathy. You're in excellent health, Mr. Thompson. No issues whatsoever. Good to know. Can I give you some advice? Off the record. Marcus nodded. Whatever you're doing here, whatever deal you've made, make sure you know what you're getting into. Victoria Sterling is not a woman who loses. She doesn't make deals that don't favor her, and she doesn't show mercy to people who get in her way. Is that a warning? It's an observation. Dr. Harrison headed for the door, then paused. Your daughter, Destiny. I reviewed her file. The surgery has a 94% success rate with her current condition. She's going to be fine. Something loosened in Marcus's chest. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. You haven't seen what comes next. Dr. Harrison left. Marcus sat alone in the examination room wondering what the hell that meant. Victoria came to his room that night. No warning, no knock. She just appeared in the doorway wearing a silk robe, her blonde hair loose around her shoulders. Without the armor of her business suits, she looked almost human. Almost. Dr. Harrison says you're healthy. That's what he told me. Good. She stepped into the room. Then we can begin. Marcus's heart hammered in his chest. Now, tonight. Did you expect candlelight and roses, Mr. Thompson? This isn't a romance. It's a transaction. The sooner we complete it, the sooner we can both move on with our lives. She walked toward the bed and sat down on the edge, close enough for Marcus to smell her perfume, something cold and expensive, like winter flowers. Take off your shirt. Marcus didn't move. Is there a problem? He took a breath. I've never done anything like this before. Like what sex? Sex with someone I don't love, someone I barely know, someone who's paying me. Victoria tilted her head, studying him like a specimen under a microscope. Does it matter? It matters to me. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then, Victoria did something unexpected. She reached out and touched his hand. I'm not going to pretend this is something it isn't, Mr. Thompson. I'm not going to light candles or whisper sweet nothings. That's not who I am. Her voice softened just slightly. But I can tell you this. You're not a piece of meat to me. You're not disposable. I chose you because I saw something in you that I haven't seen in anyone else in a very long time. What? Decency. She withdrew her hand. In my world, decency is worth more than diamonds. So no, I'm not going to treat you like a transaction. But I'm also not going to pretend we're in love. Can you live with something in between? Marcus looked at her. At the coldness in her eyes that suddenly seemed less like cruelty and more like armor. At the tension in her shoulders that spoke of years spent fighting battles no one ever saw. Yeah, he said quietly. I can live with that. Victoria nodded. She stood up, walked to the door and paused. Tomorrow night, after Destiny's surgery. We'll begin then. She left. Marcus sat on the bed, heart-pounding, mind-racing. What had he gotten himself into? And why, despite everything, did he feel like Victoria Sterling was just as trapped as he was? Destiny's surgery happened on a Tuesday. 8 hours. 8 endless hours of waiting in a hospital room that smelled like antiseptic and fear. Ruth sat beside Marcus, holding his hand, praying under her breath. Neither of them spoke. What was there to say? At 4:47 p.m., Dr. Patel walked through the door. Marcus couldn't read his face. Couldn't tell if the news was good or bad. His heart stopped beating as he waited for the words that would decide everything. Mr. Thompson, Dr. Patel smiled. Your daughter is going to be just fine. Marcus's legs gave out. He collapsed into the chair, his whole body shaking with relief. Ruth burst into tears, her trembling hands covering her face. The surgery was a complete success, Dr. Patel continued. Destiny will need several weeks of recovery and rehabilitation, but her prognosis is excellent. She should live a normal, healthy life. Normal. Healthy. Life. 3 words Marcus had never dared to hope for. Can I see her? She's still unconscious, but yes, you can see her. Marcus walked into the recovery room on legs that barely worked. Destiny lay in the hospital bed, small and pale, tubes and wires connecting her to machines that beeped steadily. But her face was peaceful. Her breathing was strong. She was alive. Marcus sat beside her and took her tiny hand in his. I told you, princess, he whispered. Daddy was gonna be brave. A single tear rolled down his cheek. He had made a deal with the devil, and the devil had kept her word. Now it was his turn. That night, Marcus returned to Victoria's mansion. She was waiting for him in the living room, a glass of wine in her hand. How is she? She made it. Surgery was successful. Victoria nodded. I'm glad. Marcus stood there exhausted, overwhelmed, grateful, terrified. A storm of emotions he couldn't name and couldn't control. Thank you, he said. The words came out rough. I know this is a transaction. I know you have your own reasons. But still, thank you. Victoria set down her wine glass. She walked toward him, stopping close enough to touch. You kept your end of the bargain, Mr. Thompson. Your daughter is alive because you had the courage to do what needed to be done." Her blue eyes searched his face. "Now it's time for me to keep mine." She turned and walked toward the stairs. At the bottom step, she paused and looked back. "Are you coming?" Marcus took a breath. Then he followed. The first night was nothing like Marcus had imagined. He followed Victoria up the grand staircase, his heart pounding so hard he could feel it in his throat. Each step felt heavier than the last. By the time they reached her bedroom door, his palms were slick with sweat. Victoria pushed the door open and walked inside without looking back. Marcus hesitated at the threshold. "Are you coming in or not?" He stepped through. The room was enormous. White silk curtains, a bed the size of a small boat. Everything pristine. Everything perfect. Everything cold. Victoria stood by the window, her back to him. She had removed her robe somewhere between the door and the window, and now she stood in a black silk nightgown that probably cost more than Marcus made in a month. "Close the door." He closed it. The click of the latch echoed through the silent room like a gunshot. Victoria turned around. Her face was unreadable, those blue eyes that revealed nothing and saw everything. "You're nervous." "Wouldn't you be?" "I stopped being nervous a long time ago." She walked toward him, her bare feet silent on the hardwood floor. "Nervousness is a luxury for people who can afford to be uncertain. I can't afford that." She stopped inches from him, close enough for him to see the faint lines around her eyes, the tension in her jaw, the slight tremor in her hands that she was trying so hard to hide. "You're scared too," Marcus said quietly. Victoria's mask flickered, just for a second, just enough for him to see the truth underneath. "Don't be ridiculous. You're scared this won't work. Scared you'll lose another baby. Scared you'll end up alone with all your money and none of the things that actually matter." Victoria's hand came up fast. Marcus caught her wrist before the slap could land. They stood there frozen, her arms suspended in the air between them. "Let go of me." "No." "I said let go." "And I said no." Marcus held her gaze. "You can buy a lot of things, Ms. Sterling. You can buy my time. You can buy my body. But you can't buy my silence. And you can't hit me just because I said something true." Victoria's eyes blazed with fury. But beneath the fury, Marcus saw something else. Something that looked almost like respect. "You're not what I expected," she said. "Neither are you." He released her wrist. Victoria rubbed the spot where his fingers had been. "Most men would have let me hit them, would have apologized, would have done anything to keep me happy. I'm not most men." "No." Victoria studied him like she was seeing him for the first time. "You're not." She turned away and walked to the bed. She sat on the edge, her hands folded in her lap, and for a moment she looked less like a billionaire CEO and more like a woman who had run out of options. "Sit down, Mr. Thompson." "Marcus." "What?" "My name is Marcus. If we're going to do this, you might as well use it." Victoria considered this. "Fine. Marcus, sit down." He sat beside her on the bed. Not close, not touching. Just two people sharing the same space, trying to figure out what came next. "I need to tell you something," Victoria said. "Before we begin." "I'm listening." "I've been pregnant twice before." Marcus felt his stomach drop. "What happened?" "The first time I was 28. I was engaged to a man named Richard Mercer. Old money, good family, said all the right things." Victoria's voice was flat, mechanical, like she was reading from a script. "I miscarried at 10 weeks. The doctor said it was stress. I was working 18-hour days trying to keep the company afloat after my father's stroke." "I'm sorry." "Don't be. Richard left me 3 weeks later. Turns out he'd been planning to steal 30% of my company through a prenup I never signed. The miscarriage was just an excuse to disappear before I found out." Marcus didn't know what to say, so he said nothing. "The second time was 7 years ago. I was 36. No man involved. Artificial insemination. I thought I could do it alone. Victoria's hands tightened in her lap. It was ectopic. The embryo implanted in my fallopian tube instead of my uterus. I almost bled to death on my bathroom floor. Jesus. The doctors saved my life. Barely. They told me I might never conceive again. That even if I did, the risk of another ectopic pregnancy was significant. That my body was working against me. She turned to look at Marcus. Her eyes were dry. Her face was stone. But her voice cracked just slightly on the next words. Do you understand now? Do you understand why I chose you? Why I've gone to these lengths? Because you're running out of time. Because I'm out of time. This is my last chance, Marcus. My doctors confirmed it 6 weeks ago. 1 more year, maybe less. And then my body shuts down, and I become another childless billionaire who dies alone in a mansion full of things that don't matter. Marcus sat with that for a moment, sat with the weight of what she was telling him. This woman who seemed invincible, this woman who could buy anything, control anyone, destroy everything in her path. She was just as desperate as he was, just as scared, just as trapped. I'm not going to promise you anything, Marcus said finally. I can't promise this will work. I can't promise you won't lose another baby. I can't promise any of the things you want. I know. But I can promise you this. He turned to face her fully. I'm not going to run. I'm not going to disappear. Whatever happens next, I'm going to see it through, because that's the deal. And because my daughter is alive today, because of you. Victoria stared at him. Something shifted in her expression. Something that might have been gratitude. Might have been hope. Thank you, she whispered. It was the first genuine thing she'd said to him since they met. That night they didn't do what Marcus had expected. Instead, they talked, for hours, about nothing and everything. About Marcus's childhood in Decatur, Georgia. About his father, Harold, who worked himself to death at an auto shop. About his mother, Ruth, who still made the best sweet potato pie in 3 counties. About Destiny, who was convinced that butterflies were actually tiny angels. And Victoria talked too. About her mother, Eleanor, who died of breast cancer when Victoria was 12. About her father, Charles, who turned his grief into ambition and built Sterling Capital from nothing. About the empty mansion she'd lived in since she was 18. About the loneliness that no amount of money could cure. When the sun came up, they were still sitting on the bed, fully clothed, exhausted, and somehow closer than they'd been the night before. We should sleep, Victoria said. Yeah. Neither of them moved. Tomorrow night, Victoria said. We'll try again. Okay. She stood and walked to the door of the master bathroom. At the threshold, she paused. Marcus. Yeah. Thank you. For listening. She disappeared into the bathroom before he could respond. Marcus sat alone in the billionaire's bedroom watching the Atlanta sunrise paint the walls gold and wondered how everything had gotten so complicated so fast. The second night was different. This time Victoria didn't pretend. Didn't put on the armor of cold professionalism. Didn't try to make it a transaction. She was waiting for him when he came to her room after dinner. Same black nightgown. Same nervous hands she was trying to hide, but something in her eyes had changed, softened. I've been thinking, she said. About what? About what you said last night. About being scared. Marcus sat beside her. What about it? You were right. The words came out like they hurt. I am scared. I've been scared for so long, I forgot what it felt like to not be scared. I wake up scared. I go to sleep scared. I run a $2 billion company, and every single day I'm terrified that someone will figure out I have no idea what I'm doing. Everyone feels that way. Do they? Victoria looked at him. Do you? Every damn day. Every time I wake up and remember I'm a 42-year-old janitor with a sick kid and a mountain of debt. Every time I look in the mirror and wonder what the hell happened to my life. But you don't show it. Neither do you. Victoria laughed, a real laugh, small and surprised like she'd forgotten how. We're quite a pair, aren't we? Two terrified people pretending to have it together. Fake it till you make it. Is that your philosophy? It's the only one I've got. Victoria reached out and took his hand. Her fingers were cold, trembling slightly. I want this to work, Marcus, not just the baby. This, whatever this is. What do you mean? I mean, I don't want you to hate me. I know how this started. I know what I did was manipulative, cruel even. But I need you to understand, I didn't know any other way. Every man I've ever trusted has betrayed me. Every relationship I've ever had has been a lie. I don't know how to do this the normal way. There is no normal way. You know what I mean. Marcus squeezed her hand. Listen to me. I'm not going to lie to you. When I first walked into your office, I wanted to strangle you. You were holding my daughter's life hostage, using my desperation against me. I hated you. Victoria flinched. But, Marcus continued, I also understand. I understand what it's like to feel trapped, to feel like you have no options, to do things you never thought you'd do because the alternative is worse. So you forgive me. I don't know if I forgive you, but I understand you. And right now that's enough. Victoria's eyes glistened. She blinked hard, forcing the tears back. I'm not used to this, she said quietly. Used to what? Being understood. She leaned forward and kissed him. It wasn't passionate, wasn't desperate. It was soft, tentative, like a question she was afraid to ask. Marcus kissed her back, and for the first time since he'd walked into her mansion, the distance between them started to close. 3 weeks passed. Marcus fell into a routine. Mornings he went to the hospital to visit Destiny, who was recovering faster than anyone expected. Afternoons, he helped Ruth get settled in the new apartment Victoria had arranged near the hospital. Evenings, he returned to the mansion and waited for Victoria to come home from work. And nights. The nights belonged to them. Something was changing between Marcus and Victoria. He felt it happening but couldn't name it. The way she started leaving her office door open when she worked late so he could bring her tea without knocking. The way she began asking about Destiny, remembering details, following up on her progress. The way she stopped calling him Mr. Thompson and started calling him Marcus without thinking about it. One night, Marcus was sitting in the library when Victoria came home at midnight, exhausted, her hair falling out of its usual tight bun. Long day. Henderson called another board meeting. Victoria collapsed onto the couch beside him. Third one this month. He's circling. Henderson. Marcus Henderson, vice chairman of the board. He worked with my father for 30 years. Thinks the company should have gone to him when Dad died. What does he want? What they all want. Control, power. The Aldrich name without an Aldrich running the company. Victoria rubbed her temples. He knows something's wrong. I've missed 3 meetings in the past 2 weeks. Delegated decisions I would normally make myself. He can smell blood in the water. Does he know about us? Not yet, but he has people watching me. It's only a matter of time. Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. What happens if he finds out? He'll leak it to the press. Billionaire CEO pays janitor to impregnate her. The scandal will be enough to tank our stock price. The board will have grounds to remove me, and everything my father built will be destroyed. Then we need to be more careful. Victoria shook her head. Careful won't help. Henderson is patient. He'll wait, gather evidence, build a case, and when he has enough ammunition, he'll strike. So what do we do? I don't know. Victoria's voice cracked. For the first time in my life, I don't know. Marcus moved closer. He put his arm around her shoulders, pulling her against him. We'll figure it out. You don't understand. This isn't your problem. This is my problem, my company, my legacy. Victoria. He turned her face toward him. The day you paid for my daughter's surgery, you made it my problem. The day you asked me to give you a child, you made it my problem. We're in this together now. Like it or not." Victoria stared at him. "Why do you care?" "Because you're not as terrible as you pretend to be." A surprised laugh escaped her lips. "That's a very low bar." "Maybe, but it's more than most people clear." She leaned against him, her head resting on his shoulder. They sat like that for a long time, watching the fire crackle in the fireplace, neither of them speaking. "Marcus?" "Yeah. I think I might be pregnant." The words hung in the air like a held breath. Marcus's heart stopped. "Are you sure?" "I'm late, by 11 days. I haven't been late in 15 years. "Have you taken a test?" "I'm too scared." Victoria's voice was barely a whisper. "I've been here before. Twice. Both times I let myself hope. Both times hope destroyed me." Marcus took her hand. "Then we'll take it together. Tomorrow." "What if it's negative?" "Then we try again. And if it's positive? What if I lose another baby? What if my body fails me again? Then we deal with it together." He squeezed her hand. "You're not alone anymore, Victoria. I know that's hard to believe. I know trust doesn't come easy for you. But I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere." Victoria looked at him with eyes full of fear and something else. Something that looked like the beginning of trust. Promise. Promise. The next morning, Dr. Harrison Cole arrived at the mansion. Victoria had insisted on having him come to her rather than going to a clinic. Too many eyes at a clinic, she'd said. Too many people who could talk. Marcus waited in the library while Dr. Harrison examined Victoria in her bedroom. The minutes stretched like hours. He paced back and forth, unable to sit still, unable to think about anything except what was happening upstairs. Finally, the bedroom door opened. Victoria appeared at the top of the stairs. Her face was pale. Her hands were shaking. Marcus couldn't read her expression. Couldn't tell if it was joy or devastation. "Well," Victoria walked down the stairs slowly. One step at a time. Each step an eternity. She stopped in front of him. "I'm pregnant." The world stopped spinning. You're sure?" Dr. Harrison confirmed it. 6 weeks along. The embryo is implanted correctly. No signs of ectopic pregnancy." Her voice trembled. "It's real, Marcus. It's actually real." Then something happened that Marcus had never seen before. Victoria Sterling started to cry. Not quiet, dignified tears. Real sobs. The kind that come from somewhere deep inside, from a place that's been locked away for years. Marcus pulled her into his arms and held her while she cried. Held her while years of fear and loneliness and disappointment poured out of her. Held her until the sobs slowed and the trembling stopped. "I'm sorry," she whispered against his chest. "I never cry." "I don't know what's wrong with me." "Nothing's wrong with you. You're human, that's all." Victoria pulled back and looked at him. Her eyes were red. Her mascara was ruined. She looked nothing like the ice queen he'd met 2 months ago. She looked beautiful. "Thank you," she said, "for everything." "Don't thank me yet. We've got a long way to go." "I know." Victoria wiped her eyes. "But for the first time in a very long time, I actually believe we might make it." Marcus smiled. "That's a start." Dr. Harrison came downstairs a few minutes later, his medical bag in hand. "The pregnancy appears healthy," he said, looking at both of them. "But given Victoria's history, we need to be extremely careful. Bed rest as much as possible. No stress. No overworking. Weekly checkups for the first trimester." "No stress?" Victoria laughed bitterly. "I run a $2 billion company. Stress is my job description." "Then you'll need to delegate. At least for the next few months, Doctor." Harrison's face was serious. Victoria, I'm not going to sugarcoat this. Your body has been through trauma, 2 miscarriages, an ectopic pregnancy that nearly killed you. This pregnancy is a miracle. But miracles are fragile. If you want to carry this baby to term, you need to prioritize your health over everything else. Including my company. Especially your company. Victoria's jaw tightened. Marcus could see the war happening behind her eyes. The pull between the empire she'd spent 20 years building and the child she'd wanted her entire life. I understand, she said finally. Dr. Harrison nodded. I'll see you next week. He turned to Marcus. Take care of her. I will. After the doctor left, Victoria stood in the middle of the foyer looking lost. It was the first time Marcus had ever seen her look uncertain. I don't know how to do this, she said quietly. Do what? Step back. Let go. Let someone else take control. She looked at him. I've been fighting my whole life, Marcus. Fighting to prove I was good enough. Fighting to protect my father's legacy. Fighting to survive in a world that wanted me to fail. I don't know how to stop fighting. Marcus walked over and took both her hands in his. Then don't stop. Just change what you're fighting for. What do you mean? You've spent 20 years fighting for Sterling Capital, fighting for money and power and respect. Maybe it's time to fight for something else. Like what? Like this baby. Like yourself. Like having a life that's worth living instead of just surviving. Victoria's eyes glistened. You make it sound so simple. It's not simple, but it's possible. Marcus squeezed her hands. And you don't have to do it alone. Victoria stared at him for a long moment. Then she did something that surprised them both. She leaned forward and kissed him. Not the tentative kiss of their first night together. This was different. Deeper. More certain. When she pulled back, her eyes were still wet, but she was smiling. What was that for? Marcus asked. For being the only person who's ever made me believe I could be more than what I am. You've always been more than what you are. You just never had anyone to show you. Victoria laughed softly. When did you become so wise? I've had a lot of time to think. Cleaning toilets at 2 a.m. gives you perspective. I suppose it does. They stood there in the grand foyer of Victoria's mansion, holding hands like teenagers, 2 broken people who had somehow found each other in the wreckage of their lives. It wasn't love. Not yet. But it was something. And something Marcus realized was more than either of them had ever had before. That night, Marcus called Ruth to check on Destiny. She's doing wonderful, Ruth said. Ate 2 helpings of dinner, laughed at cartoons for an hour, asked about you. What did she ask? Where you are, what you're doing, when you're coming home. Ruth paused. What should I tell her, Marcus? Marcus looked across the living room at Victoria, who was reading a book by the fireplace, one hand resting unconsciously on her still flat stomach. Tell her Daddy's working. Tell her it's important. Tell her I'll be home soon. Is that the truth? It's as close to the truth as I can manage right now. Ruth was quiet for a moment. Are you okay, baby? Are they treating you right? Yeah, Mama. They're treating me fine. And this woman, the one who paid for everything. Marcus watched Victoria turn a page, a small smile playing on her lips. He wondered what she was reading. Wondered if she'd tell him if he asked. She's complicated, Mama. But she's not what I expected. Is that good or bad? I haven't figured that out yet. Ruth sighed. You be careful, Marcus. People like that rich people, they live by different rules. Don't let her make you forget who you are. I won't, Mama. And call your daughter. She misses you. I will. Tomorrow, I promise. He hung up and walked over to where Victoria was sitting. Everything okay? She asked without looking up. Yeah, Destiny's doing great. Eating well. Laughing again. Good. Victoria turned another page. She sounds like a fighter. She is. Gets it from her grandmother. Victoria looked up at him. And her father. Marcus sat down beside her. Can I ask you something? You can ask. I might not answer. What were you like as a kid before all this? Before the company? Before everything? Victoria set down her book. Her expression shifted, softened. I was happy, she said. I know that's hard to believe, but I was. My mother was still alive. My father was home every night for dinner. We lived in a small house in Midtown before Dad made his first million. I had friends. I played soccer. I wanted to be a veterinarian. What changed? My mother died, and everything fell apart. Victoria stared into the fire. My father threw himself into work to escape the grief. I threw myself into being perfect so he would notice me again. By the time I was 18, I'd forgotten what it felt like to want something for myself. All I knew was what I was supposed to want. And now, Victoria placed her hand on her stomach again, that unconscious gesture that Marcus had started to notice. Now I want this baby to have the childhood I lost. I want them to be happy, truly happy, not successful, not powerful, just happy. That's a good thing to want. Is it? Victoria looked at him. I've spent my entire life chasing things that don't matter. Power, control, respect. And now I'm 43 years old, and I don't know if I'm capable of giving a child what they need. You're capable. How do you know? Because you're asking the question. Bad parents don't wonder if they're bad parents. They just assume they're fine. Marcus smiled. The fact that you're scared means you care, and caring is the most important thing. Victoria's eyes filled with tears again. She wiped them away quickly, almost angrily. I hate this, she muttered. I never used to cry. Now I can't stop. Hormones. Don't remind me. Marcus laughed. It was the first real laugh he'd had in months. Victoria looked at him surprised, and then she laughed too. And for a moment, sitting together in front of the fire, they weren't a billionaire and a janitor. They weren't two people bound by a contract and a secret. They were just two people laughing together, hoping that maybe, just maybe, things might actually work out. But hope, as Marcus would soon learn, was a dangerous thing. Because while they were sitting by the fire planning for a future they dared to believe in, Marcus Henderson was in his office across town, staring at a photograph on his desk. A photograph of Victoria Sterling entering a fertility clinic 6 weeks ago. A photograph that would change everything. Marcus Henderson had been waiting for this moment for 23 years. He sat in his corner office on the 48th floor of Sterling Capitol Tower, the photograph spread out on his mahogany desk like a winning poker hand. Victoria Sterling, caught by a telephoto lens, walking into the Emory Reproductive Center 6 weeks ago. Her face was partially obscured by sunglasses, but there was no mistaking that blonde hair, that rigid posture, that expensive black coat. The Ice Queen was hiding something. Henderson picked up his phone and dialed a number he knew by heart. It's me. I need you to dig deeper. Find out who she's been seeing, who's been visiting her mansion. I want names, dates, everything. He hung up and leaned back in his chair, a smile spreading across his face. Charles Sterling had promised him the company. Promised him. Back in 1998, when Henderson had saved Sterling Capital from a hostile takeover that would have destroyed everything, Charles had shaken his hand, looked him in the eye, and said, "When I'm gone, Marcus, this company is yours." Then Charles had his stroke. Then he died. And instead of keeping his promise, he'd left everything to his daughter. His 26-year-old, barely out-of-college daughter who had no business running a lemonade stand, let alone a $2 billion corporation. Henderson had waited, watched, planned. For 17 years, he'd watched Victoria make decisions that should have sunk the company. Instead, she'd grown it, tripled the revenue, expanded into new markets, proven every skeptic wrong, including him. But now finally, she was slipping. Missing meetings, delegating decisions, showing weakness. and Henderson was going to exploit every crack until the whole empire came crashing down. Victoria didn't know about the photograph. Not yet. She was sitting in her home office reviewing quarterly reports when her phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. "Destiny wants to video call. You free?" Victoria smiled. It was a small thing, but it happened more often now. 2 months of living with Marcus Thompson had changed her in ways she was still trying to understand. "Give me 5 minutes," she texted back. She finished the paragraph she was reading, closed her laptop, and walked downstairs to the living room where Marcus was waiting with his phone. "Ready?" "Ready." Marcus tapped the screen, and Destiny's face appeared. Bright eyes, wide smile, a pink bow in her braided hair. "Daddy and the pretty lady." Victoria felt her heart stutter. Destiny had started calling her the pretty lady 3 weeks ago after Marcus had introduced them during a hospital visit. It was the first time Victoria had met the child whose life she had saved, the child whose father she was now carrying inside her. "Hi, sweetheart," Marcus said. "How are you feeling today?" "Good, the doctor said. I can go home next week. Grandma's gonna make me a cake." "That's wonderful, baby. What kind of cake?" "Chocolate with sprinkles and a butterfly on top because butterflies are angels." Victoria leaned into the frame. "That sounds delicious." Destiny's eyes went wide. "Pretty lady, are you Daddy's friend?" Victoria glanced at Marcus. He gave her a small nod. "Yes, Destiny. I'm your daddy's friend." "Do you like butterflies too?" "I love butterflies." "Daddy says butterflies are good luck. He says when you see one, it means someone in heaven is watching over you." Destiny's face grew serious. "My mommy went to heaven. I don't remember her, but Grandma says she loved me very much." Victoria felt something crack inside her chest. This child. This innocent, beautiful child who had been abandoned by her mother, who had spent half her life in hospitals, who still believed in butterflies and angels and heaven. "I'm sure she did," Victoria said softly. "I'm sure she loved you more than anything. Do you have a mommy?" The question hit Victoria like a punch. "I did. She went to heaven too, a long time ago." "Then maybe they're friends now." Destiny smiled. "Maybe your mommy and my mommy are watching us together, like butterfly angels." Victoria couldn't speak. Her throat had closed up completely. Marcus rescued her. "Okay, princess, the pretty lady has to go back to work now, but we'll see you soon. Okay?" "Okay, Daddy. I love you." "I love you too, baby. More than all the stars in the sky. More than all the fish in the ocean. More than all the grains of sand on every beach in the world." Destiny giggled. "That's a lot. That's how much I love you." The call ended. Marcus set down the phone and looked at Victoria. She was crying. "Hey!" He moved closer, pulling her into his arms. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong." Victoria wiped her eyes angrily. I wasn't prepared for that. She's so perfect, hopeful, despite everything she's been through. She's still hopeful." Marcus held her tighter. "Kids are resilient, more resilient than we give them credit for." "I want our baby to be like that." Victoria's voice was barely a whisper. "I want them to believe in butterflies and angels and heaven. I want them to have hope." "They will." "How do you know?" "Because they'll have you, and despite what you think about yourself, Victoria Sterling, you are not the monster you pretend to be." Victoria laughed through her tears. "You keep saying that." "Because it keeps being true." She pulled back and looked at him. Really looked at him. This man who had walked into her life as a transaction and somehow become something more. "Marcus." "Yeah." "What are we doing?" "What do you mean?" "This. Us. What is this?" Marcus was quiet for a moment. "I don't know. I stopped trying to figure it out about 3 weeks ago. Does that bother you?" "Does what bother me?" "Not knowing. Not having a plan. Not being in control." Marcus smiled. Victoria, I've never been in control of anything in my entire life. I'm a janitor who got fired from an auto shop and ended up cleaning toilets in a skyscraper. Control is not something I'm familiar with. But you're not a janitor anymore. You haven't been to Sterling Capital in 2 months. Technically, I'm on medical leave. Technically, you're living in my mansion and sleeping in my bed. Is that a complaint? No. Victoria's voice softened. It's an observation. She reached up and touched his face. Her fingers traced the line of his jaw, the stubble he hadn't shaved in 3 days. I'm not used to this, she said. Used to what? Depending on someone, trusting someone, actually wanting someone around. Is that what you want me around? Victoria hesitated. This was the moment. The moment where she could retreat behind her walls, protect herself, keep him at arm's length like she'd kept everyone else. Or she could tell the truth. Yes, she said. I want you around. Marcus leaned forward and kissed her. Soft, gentle. The kind of kiss that asked permission instead of demanding surrender. Good, he murmured against her lips. Because I'm not going anywhere. The next morning, everything changed. Victoria was in her home office when Margaret knocked on the door. Ms. Sterling, Mr. Henderson is here to see you. Victoria's blood ran cold. Henderson? He's supposed to be in New York. He says it's urgent. He's waiting in the foyer. Victoria stood up, her mind racing. Henderson never showed up unannounced, never deviated from his schedule. Something was wrong. Tell him I'll be down in 5 minutes. She checked herself in the mirror, smoothed her hair, made sure her face revealed nothing. Then she walked downstairs. Henderson was standing by the grand staircase, his hands clasped behind his back. He was 68 years old, with silver hair and cold gray eyes. He wore a suit that cost more than most people's cars and a smile that never reached his eyes. Victoria, you look well. Marcus, this is unexpected. I apologize for the intrusion. I was in the area and thought we might have a conversation. Henderson glanced around the foyer. Privately. Victoria gestured toward her study. This way. She led him down the hallway, her heart pounding. Henderson had never visited her home before. Not once in 17 years. The study was her sanctuary. Books lining the walls. Her father's old desk. The chair where she'd sat as a child watching Charles Sterling work late into the night. Henderson took a seat across from her, crossing one leg over the other, with practiced ease. I'll get straight to the point, he said. The board is concerned. About what? About you. You've missed 4 meetings in the past 6 weeks. You've delegated decisions that would normally require your personal attention. You've been distracted. I've been dealing with a health issue. Nothing serious, but my doctors recommended I reduce my workload temporarily. A health issue. Henderson tilted his head. Would this health issue have anything to do with your visit to the Emory Reproductive Center 6 weeks ago? Victoria's heart stopped. Don't react. Don't let him see. I don't know what you're talking about. I think you do. Henderson pulled out his phone and showed her the photograph. Her, walking into the clinic, face half hidden but unmistakable. I have people, Victoria. People who watch. People who report. Did you really think you could keep something like this a secret? Victoria forced her voice to stay steady. That photograph proves nothing. People visit fertility clinics for many reasons. True. But people don't typically have janitors moving into their mansions for many reasons. Henderson's smile widened. Marcus Thompson, night shift. Started 8 months ago. Currently on medical leave. Currently living at this address. The floor dropped out from under Victoria's feet. He knew. He knew everything. I have no idea what you're implying. I'm not implying anything. I'm stating facts. Henderson leaned forward. Here's what I think happened. I think you got desperate. Your biological clock running out. No suitable men in sight. So you found someone disposable. Someone desperate. Someone who needed your money badly enough to do whatever you asked. That's absurd. Is it? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like the CEO of Sterling Capital hired a janitor to impregnate her. And when that story hits the press, and it will hit the press, our stock price will collapse. Our investors will flee. The board will have no choice but to remove you. Victoria stood up so fast her chair scraped against the floor. Get out! Not yet. Henderson remained seated perfectly calm. I'm not here to threaten you, Victoria. I'm here to offer you a way out. I don't need a way out. Yes, you do, because right now you have two options. Option 1, I leak this story to the Wall Street Journal. By tomorrow morning, you're the punchline of every joke in corporate America. By next week, you're out of a job. By next month, Sterling Capital is being carved up and sold to the highest bidder. Victoria's hands were shaking. She gripped the edge of her desk to hide it. What's option 2? Option 2. You step down voluntarily. Cite health reasons. Name me as interim CEO while the board conducts a search for your replacement. You keep your dignity. You keep your shares. You keep your precious reputation intact. And you get everything my father built. I get what your father promised me. Henderson's voice hardened. Charles Sterling was my friend, my mentor. He built this company with his own hands, and he promised me that I would run it when he was gone. Instead, he gave it to a child who didn't know a balance sheet from a bedsheet. I was 26 years old. I had an MBA from Wharton. You were a girl playing dress-up in her daddy's corner office, and I've spent 17 years watching you pretend to be something you're not. Henderson stood up. You have until Friday to make your decision. After that, option 1 becomes the only option. He walked toward the door. Henderson. He turned. If you think I'm going to roll over and let you take my company, you don't know me at all. Henderson smiled, that cold reptilian smile. Oh, I know you, Victoria, better than you know yourself. I know you're afraid. I know you're alone. And I know that deep down you've always believed you weren't good enough for this job. He opened the door. The only question is whether you're willing to admit it before I prove it to the entire world. He left. Victoria stood alone in her study, her entire body trembling. 17 years. 17 years of fighting, clawing, surviving. And it was all about to come crashing down because she dared to want something for herself, because she dared to want a child, because she dared to want Marcus. She didn't know how long she stood there. Minutes, hours. Time lost all meaning. Eventually she heard footsteps, felt arms wrap around her from behind. I heard everything. Marcus's voice, warm, steady, real. He's going to destroy me. No, he's not. You don't understand. Victoria turned to face him. Henderson has been waiting for this moment for 17 years. He's patient. He's ruthless. And he has proof. Proof of what? That we're together, that you're pregnant, that I paid a janitor to impregnate me. That's how he'll spin it. That's how the press will report it. It doesn't matter what the truth is, it only matters what the story is. Then we tell our story first. Victoria laughed bitterly. What story? The story of a desperate billionaire who bought a baby from a poor black man. Do you know how that sounds? Do you know what they'll say about both of us? I know exactly what they'll say. They'll call me a gold digger, a gigolo. They'll say I sold myself for money. They'll drag my daughter into it, my mother, everyone I care about. Marcus's jaw tightened. But I don't care. How can you not care? Because my daughter is alive. Because she's going to grow up healthy and strong. Because every morning I get to call her and hear her laugh. Marcus took Victoria's face in his hands. That's worth more than anything they can say about me. And if the price of Destiny's life is my reputation, then that's a price I'm willing to pay 1,000 times over. Victoria's eyes filled with tears. You shouldn't have to pay that price. None of this is your fault. None of it's your fault either. You didn't do anything wrong. You wanted a child. You made a deal. You kept your end of the bargain. Marcus wiped her tears with his thumb. The only person who did anything wrong is Henderson. He's the one blackmailing you. He's the one threatening to destroy your company. He's the villain here, not you. But he's going to win. Not if we fight back. How? He has evidence. He has leverage. He has the board in his pocket. He has photographs and assumptions. That's not the same as proof. Marcus's mind was racing. What exactly does he know? What can he actually prove? He knows I went to a fertility clinic. He knows you moved in here. He knows I've been missing meetings. But he doesn't know the details of our arrangement. He doesn't have recordings or documents or anything concrete. He doesn't need concrete proof. He just needs to create enough doubt, enough scandal. The board will do the rest. Then we need to remove his leverage. Make the story irrelevant before he can use it. How? Marcus was quiet for a moment, his brain working through possibilities, strategies, angles. What if we got ahead of him? What do you mean? What if instead of waiting for him to leak the story, we told our own version first, controlled the narrative, made it impossible for him to spin it the way he wants? Are you suggesting we go public? I'm suggesting we tell the truth, not the whole truth, not every detail, but enough to make Henderson's version sound like exactly what it is: a jealous old man trying to steal a company that doesn't belong to him. Victoria stared at him. That's insane. Is it right now Henderson controls the story? He decides when it comes out, how it comes out, what details get emphasized. But if we go first, we set the terms. We frame the conversation. We turn this from a scandal into a love story. A love story. CEO falls for the man who saved her life. Former janitor becomes the partner of Atlanta's most powerful businesswoman. It's not a scandal. It's a fairy tale. Except it's not true. We didn't fall in love. This was a transaction. Marcus went quiet. Victoria felt her heart rate spike. Wasn't it? I don't know anymore. His voice was barely a whisper. Do you? The question hung between them like a held breath. Victoria couldn't finish the sentence. Couldn't find the words for what she was feeling. This wasn't supposed to happen. No, it wasn't. I hired you to give me a baby. That's all. That's all it was supposed to be. And now... Victoria looked at him, really looked at him. At this man who had started as a means to an end, and somehow become the only person she actually wanted to talk to. The only person who made her laugh. The only person who made her feel like maybe, just maybe, she didn't have to be alone forever. Now I don't know what this is, she admitted. But I know I don't want to lose it. Then we fight. Together. And if we lose, then we lose together. But at least we'll know we tried. Victoria was silent for a long time. She walked to the window and looked out at the Atlanta skyline. Her city, her empire, everything she'd spent her entire adult life building. My father used to say that the hardest decisions are the ones where there's no right answer, where every option has a cost. The mark of a good leader isn't avoiding those decisions. It's making them and living with the consequences. What do you want to do? Victoria turned to face him. I want to destroy Marcus Henderson. For the first time since he'd arrived, Marcus smiled. Now that sounds like the Victoria Sterling I know. But not the way he expects. Not by fighting in public. Not by creating a bigger scandal. Victoria's eyes narrowed. Henderson has been at Sterling Capital for 30 years. In that time he's made enemies, cut corners, bent rules. Nobody gets that powerful without leaving a trail of bodies behind them. You want to dig up dirt on him? I want to find out what he's been hiding, what deals he's made, what secrets he doesn't want exposed. Victoria walked back to her desk and opened her laptop. Henderson thinks he's untouchable. He thinks he can blackmail me because I have something to lose, but I'm not the only one with secrets. How do we find out what his are? I have people too. People who've been watching Henderson for years waiting for him to make a mistake. Victoria started typing. It's time to call in some favors. Marcus watched her transform before his eyes. The vulnerable woman who'd been crying in his arms 5 minutes ago was gone. In her place was the Ice Queen, the CEO, the predator. And for the first time, he understood why people were afraid of her. "What do you need me to do?" Victoria looked up from her laptop. "I need you to go to the hospital. Visit Destiny. Be visible. Normal. Don't let Henderson's people see anything unusual." "You want me to act like nothing's wrong?" "I want you to protect your daughter. If Henderson decides to go after you, she's the most vulnerable target." Victoria's voice softened. "Take Ruth. Spend the day together. Let Destiny see her father being happy and calm. She doesn't need to know about any of this. And you. I'll be here, working, planning." Victoria smiled. It was not a kind smile. "Henderson gave me until Friday. He thinks that's a deadline. He's wrong. It's a head start." Marcus walked over and kissed her forehead. "Be careful." "I'm always careful." "No, you're not. You're reckless and brilliant and terrifying. But you're not careful." Victoria laughed despite herself. "Is that a compliment?" "It's an observation." He headed for the door. "Marcus." He turned. "Thank you. For staying. For fighting. For everything. Don't thank me yet. We haven't won anything." "No. But for the first time in a long time, I actually believe we might." Marcus left. Victoria turned back to her laptop, her fingers flying across the keyboard. Henderson wanted a war. He was going to get one. The next 48 hours were a blur of phone calls, encrypted emails, and clandestine meetings. Victoria reached out to everyone she'd ever helped, everyone who owed her a favor, everyone who had a reason to want Henderson brought down. Former employees he'd fired unfairly, competitors he'd sabotaged, partners he'd betrayed. The picture that emerged was uglier than even she had expected. Henderson had been embezzling. Small amounts at first. Tens of thousands skimmed from expense accounts and buried in shell companies. But over 30 years, those small amounts had added up. Nearly $4 million hidden in offshore accounts across 3 continents. But that wasn't the worst of it. In 2008, during the financial crisis, Sterling Capital had been on the verge of collapse. Charles Sterling had secured a bailout loan from a consortium of private investors. What nobody knew, what even Victoria hadn't known, was that Henderson had negotiated a side deal, a secret agreement that gave him a 5% stake in any future profits payable directly to an account in the Cayman Islands. Charles Sterling never knew. He'd trusted Henderson completely, and Henderson had been stealing from him from the company for 15 years. Victoria sat in her study, staring at the evidence spread across her desk. Documents, bank statements, email chains recovered from servers Henderson thought had been wiped clean. "Got you," she whispered. Her phone buzzed. "Marcus." "How's Destiny?" "Better every day. She asked about you." "What did you tell her?" "That you were working hard, that you'd visit soon." Victoria smiled. "I will. Once this is over." "How's it going?" "Better than expected. Henderson's been a very bad boy. Bad enough to stop him. Bad enough to destroy him." Victoria's voice hardened. "He's been embezzling for 30 years. Millions of dollars. And that's just the beginning." Jesus. "When the board sees this evidence, they won't just remove him. They'll prosecute him. He'll spend the rest of his life in prison." "Are you sure a man like that? He probably has lawyers. Connections." "He has lawyers, but I have proof. And in the end, proof beats everything else." Marcus was quiet for a moment. "Be careful, Victoria. Cornered animals are dangerous." "I know. I mean it. Henderson has nothing left to lose. When he finds out what you're doing, he might do something desperate. Let him try." "That's what worries me." Victoria softened. "I'll be fine. I've been dealing with men like Henderson my whole career. They think they're special. They think the rules don't apply to them. And then they find out they're just like everyone else, small, scared, and completely unprepared for someone who refuses to back down. You sound almost scary when you talk like that. Good. I should sound scary. That's how I survived this long. Marcus laughed. I'm starting to understand why they call you the Ice Queen. Do you think I'm cold? No. I think you're strong. There's a difference. Victoria felt warmth spread through her chest. This man. This impossible man who saw her clearly and liked her anyway. Marcus. Yeah. When this is over, I want us to talk, really talk, about what happens next. What do you mean? I mean, I don't want this to end when the baby comes. I don't want you to just disappear back to your old life. I want... She couldn't finish the sentence. Didn't know how. You want me to stay? Yes. Silence on the line. I want that too, Marcus said finally. I've been afraid to say it. Afraid it would change things. But yeah, I want to stay. Even after everything. Even after how this started. Especially after how this started. Because I know who you really are now. Not the mask you show the world. Not the Ice Queen. The real Victoria Sterling. The one who cries when she's scared. The one who keeps her mother's room exactly how it was 29 years ago. The one who reads children's books at night because they remind her of being loved. Victoria's eyes burned with tears. How do you know all that? Because I've been paying attention. Because you matter to me. Because somewhere along the way, this stopped being a transaction and started being something else. What else? I don't know yet. But I want to find out. Don't you? Victoria wiped her eyes. Yes. God help me, yes. Then let's win this fight. And then let's figure out the rest together. 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 The call ended. Victoria sat alone in her study. The evidence of Henderson's crimes spread before her, tears streaming down her face. For the first time in her life, she had something worth fighting for. And she was going to fight like hell to keep it. Thursday night came faster than either of them expected. Victoria sat in her study surrounded by files and documents, her laptop open to 3 different windows. The evidence against Henderson was overwhelming. Bank records, shell company registrations, offshore account statements, email chains that proved collusion, embezzlement, and fraud spanning 3 decades. She had enough to destroy him 10 times over. But Henderson still had his weapon. And in less than 24 hours, he would use it. Marcus walked in with 2 cups of coffee. He set one beside her and sat down across from her desk. You need to sleep. I'll sleep when this is over. Victoria, you're pregnant, the doctor said. The doctor said to avoid stress. Being blackmailed by a man who wants to steal my company is stress. Solving the problem is relief. Victoria took a sip of coffee. Besides, I'm almost done. Done with what? The presentation. For the board meeting tomorrow. Marcus leaned forward. Board meeting, Henderson's deadline is Friday. He's going to leak the story before any board meeting can happen. He thinks he's going to leak the story. He's wrong. Victoria turned her laptop toward Marcus. I called an emergency board meeting for 8 a.m. tomorrow. Every member confirmed, including Henderson. You called the meeting? I'm the CEO. I can call a meeting whenever I want. Victoria's eyes gleamed with something between satisfaction and rage. Henderson thinks he controls the timeline. He thinks I'm going to spend the next 24 hours panicking, begging, trying to negotiate. He has no idea what I've been doing, which is preparing to end him. Marcus studied the documents spread across the desk. Financial statements covered in red circles, photographs of signatures, printouts of wire transfers. This is everything. This is everything. 30 years of theft, $4 million embezzled, a secret profit-sharing agreement that violated his fiduciary duty to the company and the shareholders. Victoria's voice hardened. When I'm done tomorrow, Marcus Henderson won't just be removed from the board, he'll be removed from society. What about his evidence, the photographs? What he knows about us? That's the beautiful part. Victoria leaned back in her chair. He's going to try to use it. Tomorrow, in front of the entire board, he's going to stand up and accuse me of hiring a janitor to impregnate me. He's going to show the photographs. He's going to demand my resignation. And then I'm going to destroy him. Victoria smiled. It was not a kind smile. Because the moment he brings up his evidence against me, he opens the door for me to bring up mine against him. And mine is worse. Much, much worse. You're going to let him attack you first. I'm going to let him think he's winning. I'm going to let him stand up in front of 10 board members and make his accusations. I'm going to let him feel powerful and righteous and victorious. And then I'm going to pull the rug out from under him so hard he won't know what hit him. Marcus stared at her. That's either brilliant or insane. In my experience, the two are usually the same thing. She reached across the desk and took his hand. Marcus, I need you to understand something. Tomorrow is going to be ugly. Henderson is going to say terrible things about both of us. He's going to drag your name through the mud. He's going to make accusations that will be reported in every newspaper in the country. Even after I destroy him, the story will be out there. Our story. The truth twisted into something unrecognizable. I know. Are you ready for that? Marcus squeezed her hand. Victoria, I've been ready since the day I agreed to your deal. I knew what I was getting into. I knew the risks, and I made my choice. Do you regret it? No. His voice was firm, certain. I don't regret anything. My daughter is alive. My mother is taken care of. And I... He paused. I found something I didn't know I was looking for. What's that? You. Victoria felt her throat tighten. Marcus. I know this started as a transaction. I know we had rules and boundaries and expectations. But somewhere along the way it changed. You changed. I changed. And now I can't imagine my life without you in it. Even after tomorrow. Even after everyone knows. Especially after everyone knows. Marcus stood up and walked around the desk. He knelt beside her chair, taking both her hands in his. Victoria Sterling. I don't care what they say about us. I don't care what names they call me. I don't care if every person in Atlanta thinks I'm a gold digger or a gigolo or whatever else they want to believe, because I know the truth. And the truth is that you're the strongest, bravest, most terrifying woman I've ever met, and I am proud to stand beside you. Victoria couldn't speak. Tears were streaming down her face. Don't cry, Marcus said softly. You'll ruin your Ice Queen reputation. She laughed through her tears. Too late for that. Good. He kissed her hands. I never liked the Ice Queen anyway. I prefer the real Victoria. The real Victoria is a mess. The real Victoria is human. That's all any of us can be. She pulled him up and kissed him. Not the tentative kisses of their early days. This was something else. Something deeper. Something that felt like a promise. When they finally pulled apart, Victoria wiped her eyes and straightened her shoulders. Okay, she said. Let's finish this. The board meeting was scheduled for 8 a.m. in the Sterling Capitol conference room on the 50th floor. Victoria arrived at 7:30. She wanted to be the first one there, wanted to feel the room before anyone else entered, wanted to claim the space as her own. Marcus had offered to come with her, but she'd said no. This was her battle, her company, her legacy. She needed to fight it alone, but she carried him with her, his words, his confidence, his belief in her. At 7:45, the board members started arriving. Richard Chen, the oldest member who'd served under her father. Margaret Powell, the only other woman on the board. Thomas Wright, the youngest member who'd been appointed just 3 years ago. One by one, they took their seats around the massive conference table. Henderson arrived at 7:55. He walked in with the confidence of a man who believed he'd already won. His silver hair was perfectly combed. His suit was perfectly pressed. His smile was perfectly predatory. Victoria, you look tired. Marcus, you look nervous. Henderson's smile flickered. Just for a moment. Just enough for Victoria to know she'd hit a nerve. "I don't know what game you think you're playing by calling this meeting," he said quietly. "But it won't change anything. The deadline still stands." "I'm not playing a game, Marcus. I'm doing my job." Victoria gestured to the empty chair at the far end of the table. "Please, sit down." Henderson sat. At exactly 8 a.m., Victoria stood at the head of the table. "Thank you all for coming on such short notice. I know this is unusual, but I have matters to discuss that couldn't wait." "What matters?" Richard Chen asked. "Your email was vague. The future of Sterling Capital." Victoria looked around the table, meeting each pair of eyes in turn. "As you know, I've been less visible lately. I've missed meetings, delegated decisions. Some of you have expressed concern." "Some of us have more than concern," Henderson interjected. "Some of us have evidence." "Marcus, please. You'll have your turn." Victoria's voice was ice. "As I was saying, I've been dealing with a personal matter. A health issue. Nothing life-threatening, but significant enough to require adjustments to my schedule." "What kind of health issue?" Margaret Powell asked. Victoria took a breath. This was the moment. The point of no return. "I'm pregnant." Silence. Absolute silence. Then Henderson laughed. A sharp, ugly sound. "Pregnant at 43 with whose child? That's a personal matter. Is it because I have information that suggests otherwise?" Henderson stood up, pulling photographs from his briefcase. 3 weeks ago I received these. Victoria Sterling entering the Emory Reproductive Center. Victoria Sterling meeting with fertility specialists. And Victoria Sterling with a man who until 2 months ago worked as a janitor in this very building. He spread the photographs across the table. Marcus Thompson. Night shift. No college education, no assets, no connections. Just a desperate father with a sick daughter and a mountain of debt. Henderson's voice dripped with contempt. Victoria didn't fall in love with this man. She bought him. She paid off his debts, paid for his daughter's surgery, and in exchange, he agreed to impregnate her like some kind of stud horse. The board members stared at the photographs. At Victoria. At each other. "This is a scandal of epic proportions," Henderson continued. "When the press gets wind of this, and Sterling Capital's stock will plummet. Our investors will flee. Our reputation will be destroyed. All because our CEO couldn't find a man willing to give her a baby the normal way." He turned to face the board. "I move that Victoria Sterling be removed as CEO effective immediately. I'm prepared to serve as interim leadership until a permanent replacement can be found. All in favor?" Silence. Victoria let it stretch. Let the tension build. Let Henderson taste victory for one last moment. Then she spoke. "Are you finished?" Henderson frowned. "What?" "I asked if you were finished, because if you are, I'd like to respond." "There's nothing to respond to. The evidence speaks for itself." "Does it?" "Because from where I'm standing, the evidence shows a man so desperate to steal a company that he's willing to violate every ethical and legal standard to do it." Victoria reached into her own briefcase and pulled out a thick folder. "You want to talk about evidence, Marcus? Let's talk about evidence." She slid the folder across the table toward Richard Chen. "What is this?" Chen asked. 30 years of embezzlement. $4 million stolen from Sterling Capital and hidden in offshore accounts across 3 continents. Shell companies registered in the Caymans, Panama, and Switzerland, all connected to one person. She pointed at Henderson. "Him." Henderson's face went pale. "That's a lie." "Is it? Open the folder, Richard. Page 12. You'll find bank statements showing monthly transfers from Sterling Capital's expense accounts to a shell company called Horizon Holdings, LLC. Horizon Holdings is registered to a holding company in Panama, which is owned by another company in the Caymans, which is ultimately controlled by—" Victoria paused for effect. "Marcus David Henderson." Chen opened the folder. His eyes widened as he scanned the documents. "There's more," Victoria continued. Page 37. An email chain from 2008 during the financial crisis. Henderson negotiated a secret side deal with our bailout investors, a 5% stake in all future profits payable directly to him without the knowledge or consent of the board or the shareholders. That's absurd, Henderson sputtered. I would never. Page 42. Your signature. On the agreement. Victoria's voice was cold as steel. You've been stealing from this company from my father for 30 years, and you had the audacity to stand here and call me a scandal. The board members were passing the folder around, now their faces shifting from shock to anger to disgust. This is a setup, Henderson said. His voice was shaking. She fabricated these documents. She's trying to distract from her own what? Margaret Powell interrupted. Her own pregnancy. Her own personal life. Marcus, I've known Victoria for 15 years. She's never missed a deadline, never lost money, never made a decision that wasn't in the best interest of this company. Can you say the same? I've given 30 years to Sterling Capital. You've given nothing. Richard Chen cut in. His voice was quiet but devastating. You've taken. That's all you've ever done. Taken what wasn't yours and pretended it was your right. Henderson looked around the table. Every face was hostile. Every ally had abandoned him. You can't do this. You can't. I'm not doing anything. Victoria sat down calmly. I'm simply presenting evidence to the board. What they choose to do with it is their decision. Richard Chen. I move that Marcus Henderson be removed from the board of Sterling Capital, effective immediately pending a full investigation into the allegations of embezzlement and breach of fiduciary duty. Margaret Powell's voice was firm. All in favor. 9 hands went up. Henderson sat frozen, his face ashen, his carefully constructed world crumbling around him. The motion passes unanimously. Powell turned to Henderson. Security will escort you out. Your office will be sealed. All company assets in your possession will be surrendered immediately. This isn't over. Henderson set his voice barely above a whisper. I'll fight this. I'll sue. You'll do nothing. Victoria stood and walked toward him. She stopped close enough to see the sweat on his forehead, the terror in his eyes. Because the moment you walk out of this building, my lawyers will be filing a report with the SEC. The FBI will be notified. Your accounts will be frozen. And by tomorrow morning, you'll be fighting for your freedom instead of fighting for my company. She leaned closer. You came after me, Marcus. You came after my family. You thought I was weak. You thought I was vulnerable. You thought my pregnancy made me an easy target. Her voice dropped to a whisper. You were wrong. Security arrived. 2 guards took Henderson by the arms and led him toward the door. At the threshold, he turned back. His eyes found Victoria's. Your father would be ashamed of you. Victoria didn't flinch. My father would be proud, because I did exactly what he taught me to do. I protected his legacy. I protected his company. And I destroyed the man who tried to steal it. Henderson was escorted out. The door closed behind him. Silence filled the conference room. Then Richard Chen stood up. He walked around the table and stopped in front of Victoria. Your father was my best friend, he said quietly. I watched you grow up. I watched you take over this company when everyone said you were too young, too inexperienced, too female. I've seen you fight battles that would have broken anyone else. He extended his hand. I'm proud to serve under your leadership, Victoria, and I don't care who the father of your baby is. That's your business, not ours. Victoria shook his hand. Thank you, Richard. One by one, the other board members approached, shaking her hand, offering congratulations, expressing support. By the time the meeting adjourned, Victoria was surrounded by allies instead of enemies. She had won. Marcus was waiting in the lobby when Victoria came downstairs. He was sitting on one of the leather couches pretending to read a magazine, but his leg was bouncing with nervous energy. When he saw her step off the elevator, he jumped to his feet. Well, Victoria walked toward him. Her face was unreadable. Victoria, what happened? Are you... She kissed him. Right there in the lobby of Sterling Capital Tower in front of security guards and receptionists and random employees passing through. She grabbed him by the collar and kissed him like the world was ending. When she finally pulled back, Marcus was breathless. I take it things went well. Henderson is out, the board is behind me, and the FBI will be paying him a visit by end of day. Holy shit. Holy shit indeed. Victoria was smiling. A real smile. The kind he'd only seen a handful of times. It's over, Marcus. We won. We won. We won. Marcus pulled her into a hug, lifting her off her feet, spinning her around in the lobby like they were teenagers at a school dance. Put me down. Victoria laughed. I'm the CEO. I have a reputation to maintain. Your reputation is that you're terrifying. I don't think a hug is going to change that. Point taken. He set her down, but didn't let go. They stood there holding each other in the middle of the lobby, not caring who was watching. What happens now? Marcus asked. Now we go home. We rest. We celebrate. And tomorrow? Tomorrow we figure out the rest of our lives. Victoria looked up at him. Together. Together. Marcus kissed her forehead. I like the sound of that. They walked out of Sterling Capital Tower hand in hand. The Atlanta sun was bright. The sky was clear. And for the first time in months, the future didn't feel like a threat. It felt like a promise. That night they celebrated. Not with champagne and fancy dinners. Victoria had had enough of expensive things that didn't mean anything. Instead, they ordered pizza and sat on the floor of the living room, eating straight from the box while watching terrible reality television. I can't believe you've never seen this show, Marcus said, pointing at the screen. It's a classic. I don't watch television. I have better things to do with my time. Like what terrorize board members, plot corporate takeovers. Among other things. Marcus laughed and handed her another slice of pizza. You need to learn how to relax. Seriously, it's concerning. I am relaxing. This is me relaxing. You're sitting with perfect posture eating pizza with a knife and fork. That's how civilized people eat pizza. That's how psychopaths eat pizza. Victoria threw a napkin at him. He caught it and threw it back. For a few hours, they weren't a billionaire CEO and a former janitor. They weren't two people bound by a complicated arrangement. They were just a man and a woman laughing together, enjoying each other's company, letting the walls come down. Around midnight, Victoria's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and frowned. What is it? Marcus asked. Ruth, your mother. She's trying to reach you. Marcus grabbed his own phone. 3 missed calls. 2 text messages. Destiny's running a fever, he read aloud. Doctor says it's probably just a cold, but they want to keep her overnight for observation. Victoria was already standing. Go. But we were... Your daughter needs you. Go. Marcus hesitated. Come with me. What? Come with me. To the hospital. Meet Destiny. For real this time. Not just a video call. He took her hand. You're going to be part of her life, Victoria. She should start getting used to you. Victoria felt fear spike through her chest. Meeting a child. Being introduced as... What? Her father's girlfriend. The woman who paid for her surgery. The person carrying her future sibling. I don't know if that's a good idea. It's a great idea. Trust me. Marcus squeezed her hand. Destiny already likes you. She talks about the pretty lady all the time. And Ruth has been asking when she's going to meet the mysterious woman her son moved in with. What did you tell her? I told her you were complicated, but worth it. Victoria felt tears threatening again. Damn hormones. Fine, let's go. They arrived at the hospital at 12:47 a.m. Destiny was awake when they walked in. She was sitting up in bed watching cartoons on a tablet Ruth had brought her. When she saw her father, her face lit up. "Daddy? Hey, princess, I heard you're not feeling so good." "I have a fever. But the doctor said I'm gonna be okay. She gave me medicine that tastes like grapes." "That's good, baby." Marcus sat on the edge of her bed. "I brought someone to see you. Someone special." Destiny looked past him and saw Victoria standing in the doorway. "The pretty lady?" Victoria stepped forward, her heart pounding. "Hi, Destiny. You came to visit me." "I did. Your daddy said you weren't feeling well. I wanted to make sure you were okay." Destiny's eyes went wide. "Are you and Daddy boyfriend and girlfriend?" Victoria glanced at Marcus. He was grinning. Well, it's complicated." "That means yes." Destiny nodded wisely. Grandma says complicated is what grown-ups say when they don't want to tell the truth. Ruth laughed from her chair in the corner. "That child hears everything." Marcus stood and walked to his mother. "Mama, this is Victoria. Victoria, this is Ruth." Ruth studied Victoria with sharp, knowing eyes, the same eyes Marcus had inherited. "So you're the one who saved my grandbaby." "I just wrote a check. The doctors did the real work." "Don't be modest. Checks like that don't write themselves." Ruth stood and extended her hand. "Thank you. For everything. My family owes you more than we can ever repay." Victoria shook her hand. "You don't owe me anything. This was a mutual arrangement." Ruth's eyes twinkled. "And how's that mutual arrangement working out?" Victoria felt her face flush. "It's evolving." "I can see that." Ruth looked at her son. "She's pretty, smart, rich, and she actually makes you smile. I approve." "Mama, don't mama me. I've been waiting 42 years for you to find someone worth keeping. If this is her, then this is her." Ruth turned back to Victoria. "But I'll tell you this once, and I mean it. My son is a good man, the best man I know. If you hurt him, all your money won't protect you from me." "Mama." "I understand," Victoria said, "and I have no intention of hurting him." "Good. Then we'll get along just fine." Ruth smiled. "Now come sit down. Tell me about yourself, and not the stuff from the business magazines. The real stuff." Victoria sat, and for the next hour she talked. Really talked. About her mother, her father, the loneliness of growing up rich and empty, the fear of never being good enough, the desperate hope that this baby, this child, would finally fill the void she'd been carrying her whole life. Ruth listened, asked questions, nodded in understanding. By the time Victoria finished, Ruth was holding her hand. "You've had a hard life," Ruth said softly. "Different from ours, but hard in its own way. Loneliness doesn't care how big your house is." "No, it doesn't." "But you're not alone anymore. You've got Marcus. You've got this baby. And whether you like it or not," Ruth squeezed her hand, "you've got us." Victoria couldn't speak. Her throat had closed up completely. "Pretty lady, are you crying?" She looked down. Destiny was watching her with concerned eyes. "No, sweetheart. I have something in my eye." "That's what Daddy says when he cries too." Destiny smiled. "It's okay. Crying means you have feelings. Grandma says people without feelings are called sociopaths." "Sociopaths," Ruth corrected gently. "Yeah, those." Destiny reached out and took Victoria's hand. "You're not one of those. You're nice, I can tell." Victoria felt something break open inside her. Something that had been locked away for decades. "Thank you, Destiny. That means a lot to me." "You're welcome." Destiny yawned. "I'm sleepy now. Will you come back tomorrow?" "Yes, I'll come back tomorrow. Promise." Victoria looked at this child, this brave, beautiful, innocent child, who had already survived more than most adults, and felt her heart expand in ways she didn't know were possible. I promise. Destiny closed her eyes, still holding Victoria's hand. Within minutes, she was asleep. Marcus stood behind Victoria, his hands on her shoulders. You okay? I don't know. Victoria wiped her eyes. I think I just fell in love with your daughter. She has that effect on people. Is this what it's going to be like? This feeling like your heart is too big for your chest? Yeah. Marcus kissed the top of her head. That's exactly what it's going to be like. Forever. Victoria looked at Destiny's sleeping face, at Ruth dozing in her chair, at Marcus standing beside her like he'd always been there. A family. She had a family. For the first time in 29 years, Victoria Sterling didn't feel alone. 3 months passed like a dream Victoria never wanted to wake from. The scandal Henderson had threatened never materialized. Oh, there were whispers. There were always whispers in a city like Atlanta. But without Henderson feeding the flames, the story died before it could catch fire. A few gossip blogs speculated about Victoria's sudden absence from the social scene. A few business reporters noted the changes at Sterling Capital. But nobody connected the dots. Nobody discovered the truth. And slowly, quietly, Victoria Sterling began building a new life. Destiny came home from the hospital on a Tuesday in March. Marcus carried her through the front door of their new house, not Victoria's mansion, but a modest 4-bedroom in Buckhead that they'd chosen together. Ruth followed behind, fussing over blankets and pillows and whether the room temperature was exactly right. Victoria watched from the doorway, her hand resting on her growing belly, feeling like an outsider looking in on something sacred. Pretty lady. Destiny spotted her and wriggled out of her father's arms. Come see my new room. Careful, baby, Marcus said. Don't run. Doctor's orders. I'm not running. I'm fast walking. Destiny grabbed Victoria's hand and pulled her toward the stairs. Come on, Daddy painted butterflies on my wall. Victoria let herself be led. She had learned over the past 3 months that resistance was futile when it came to Destiny Thompson. The child had a will of iron wrapped in 6-year-old sweetness. The room was perfect. Soft purple walls, white furniture, and yes, butterflies, dozens of them, painted in every color imaginable, swirling across the wall above Destiny's bed like a frozen moment of magic. Daddy did all of this, Destiny said proudly. He's really good at painting. He used to paint cars, but he says butterflies are better. They're beautiful. Do you like butterflies? I do now. Destiny climbed onto her bed and patted the space beside her. Sit with me. Victoria sat. The mattress was soft. The room smelled like fresh paint and new beginnings. Pretty lady? Yes, sweetheart. Daddy says you have a baby in your tummy. Victoria's heart skipped. They'd discussed how to tell Destiny. Had planned to wait until the right moment. Apparently, Marcus had found the moment without her. That's right. Is it a boy or a girl? We don't know yet. We wanted it to be a surprise. Destiny nodded seriously. I hope it's a girl. Boys are gross. Tommy at school put a bug in my hair. Girls can be pretty gross too. Not as gross as boys. Destiny was quiet for a moment. Then, is the baby gonna be my sister or my brother? Victoria felt her throat tighten. This was the question she'd been dreading. The question that forced her to define something she still didn't fully understand. The baby is going to be part of our family, however we decide to define that. What does that mean? It means families come in all shapes and sizes. Some families have a mom and a dad. Some families have 2 moms or 2 dads. Some families have grandparents or aunts or uncles who help raise the children. Victoria took a breath. Your daddy and I are figuring out what our family looks like. But whatever we decide, you will always be loved. And the baby will always be loved. And we will always be together. Destiny processed this with the solemn intensity that only children possess. So the baby is like my bonus sister. Victoria laughed. She couldn't help it. Yes, exactly like that. Your bonus sister. Or brother. I like that. Destiny smiled. Bonus means extra special, right? Like bonus points in video games. Exactly like that. Then I'm going to be the best bonus big sister ever. Destiny threw her arms around Victoria's neck. And you're going to be the best bonus mom. Victoria froze. Bonus mom. She had never expected that. Never even considered it. In all her planning and calculating and strategizing, she had never once thought about what she would be to Destiny. She had focused so completely on the baby, her baby, that she had forgotten about the child who was already here. The child who was already hers in every way that mattered. Thank you, Destiny, Victoria whispered. I'm going to try. Trying is all that matters, Destiny said. That's what Daddy always says. Trying and not giving up. Your daddy is a smart man. I know. That's why I keep him. Victoria laughed again, and this time there were tears mixed in. Marcus found them an hour later, both asleep on Destiny's bed. Victoria's arm wrapped protectively around the child, who had somehow impossibly become her daughter. He stood in the doorway and watched them sleep. This was his life now. This impossible, beautiful, complicated life. A billionaire CEO, a 6-year-old miracle, a baby on the way, a future he never could have imagined. He thought about where he'd been a year ago. Scrubbing floors at 2 a.m., watching his daughter die slowly, drowning in debt and despair. He had been so lost, so broken, so certain that nothing would ever get better. And now he had everything. Not money, though that was part of it. Not security, though that was part of it too. What he had was something bigger. Something that couldn't be measured in bank accounts or stock portfolios. He had hope. He had love. He had family. Marcus walked quietly to the bed and kissed both of them on the forehead. Then he went downstairs to help his mother unpack. Life was waiting. The next few months brought changes Victoria never expected. She stepped back from Sterling Capital, not completely, but significantly. She appointed a COO to handle day-to-day operations. She delegated more decisions than she ever had before. She learned slowly and painfully how to trust other people to do their jobs without her constant supervision. It wasn't easy. Control had been her security blanket for 20 years. Letting go felt like jumping out of an airplane without a parachute, but Marcus was there to catch her. You checked your email 3 times during dinner, he said one evening. That's twice more than yesterday. I'm monitoring a situation. You're obsessing over a situation you can't control from your phone. It's my company. It's your company that has an excellent COO who is perfectly capable of handling whatever this situation is. Marcus reached across the table and gently took her phone. Try the food. Ruth spent all day making it. I heard that, Ruth called from the kitchen. And he's right. Put the phone away before I hide it in the freezer. Victoria looked at Marcus, at Ruth, at Destiny, who was carefully cutting her chicken into exactly equal pieces because she'd decided that uneven pieces tasted different. This was her life now. Dinner with family, conversations about nothing important, arguments about phone usage and work-life balance. It was mundane, ordinary, completely unremarkable. It was everything she'd ever wanted. Fine, she said, surrendering the phone. But if the stock price drops more than 2%, I'm blaming both of you. I can live with that, Marcus said. Me too, Ruth added. Me 3. Destiny chimed in, not entirely sure what she was agreeing to, but not wanting to be left out. Victoria shook her head and picked up her fork. She took a bite of Ruth's cooking, some kind of southern dish she couldn't pronounce, but had become addicted to, and felt something she hadn't felt in decades. Contentment. Pure, simple contentment. It terrified her. You're thinking too loud, Marcus said. How can someone think too loud? Your face gets all scrunchy, like you're trying to solve a math problem. He reached over and smoothed the crease between her eyebrows. What's going on in there? I'm waiting for something to go wrong. Why? Because something always goes wrong. Every time I've ever been happy, something has come along and destroyed it. My mother died. Richard betrayed me. Henderson tried to steal my company. Victoria set down her fork. I don't know how to be happy without waiting for the other shoe to drop. Marcus was quiet for a moment. Then he stood up, walked around the table, and knelt beside her chair. Victoria Sterling, look at me. She looked. I can't promise you that nothing will ever go wrong. I can't promise that life will always be easy or fair or kind. Bad things happen to good people. That's just how the world works. He took her hands. But I can promise you this. Whatever comes, we'll face it together. You're not alone anymore. You have me. You have Destiny. You have Ruth. You have this baby growing inside you. You have a family that loves you. And love doesn't make the bad things disappear, but it makes them bearable. How do you know? Because I've been where you are. I've stood at the edge looking down, certain that everything was hopeless. And then you came along, you with your crazy deal and your cold eyes and your broken heart, and you gave me a reason to keep going. His voice cracked. You saved my daughter's life. You saved my life. And now I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure you know that you deserve to be happy. Victoria's eyes filled with tears. I don't know how to do this. Do what? Be happy. Accept love. Trust that it won't be taken away. She wiped her eyes. I've been building walls for so long I don't know how to tear them down. You don't have to tear them down all at once. You just have to let us in, one brick at a time. Marcus squeezed her hands. Can you do that? Victoria looked at him. At this man who had started as a means to an end and become the center of her universe. I can try. That's all I'm asking. Daddy is the pretty lady crying again. Destiny's voice cut through the moment. She cries a lot. Is that because of the baby? Marcus laughed. Yeah, princess. It's because of the baby. Grandma says pregnant women cry at commercials. That's true, Ruth confirmed. I cried at a paper towel commercial when I was pregnant with your daddy. That's silly. That's hormones, baby. You'll understand when you're older. I don't want to understand. Crying at paper towels sounds embarrassing. Victoria laughed through her tears. This family, this ridiculous, wonderful, chaotic family. It is embarrassing, she admitted, but worth it. Worth what? Everything. The baby came on a Thursday in August. Victoria's water broke at 3 a.m. Marcus drove her to the hospital while Ruth stayed home with Destiny, who insisted on being woken up to say goodbye and good luck. Bring me back a sister, Destiny said, still half asleep. Don't forget. I'll do my best, princess. The labor lasted 14 hours. Victoria, who had faced down corporate raiders and hostile takeovers, and a man who tried to destroy her life, discovered that childbirth was harder than all of it combined. Marcus held her hand the entire time. He didn't flinch when she squeezed hard enough to leave bruises. He didn't complain when she screamed at him that this was all his fault. He just stayed, present, solid, unshakable. At 5:47 p.m., Eleanor Ruth Sterling Thompson came into the world. 7 pounds, 4 ounces, 10 fingers, 10 toes, a full head of dark hair, and eyes that would eventually settle into the same impossible blue as her mother's. The nurse placed the baby in Victoria's arms, and Victoria felt the last wall around her heart crumble to dust. Hi, Eleanor, she whispered. I'm your mom. The baby blinked up at her, unfocused and confused, experiencing the world for the very first time. I know I'm not what you expected, Victoria continued. I'm not soft or warm or naturally nurturing. I don't know any lullabies. I've never changed a diaper in my life. I'm probably going to make 100 mistakes before you're old enough to walk. Eleanor made a small sound. Not quite a cry. More like an observation. But I promise you this. I will love you with everything I have. I will protect you from anyone who tries to hurt you. I will teach you to be strong and brave and kind. And I will never, ever leave you. No matter what happens, no matter how hard things get. You are mine, and I am yours, and nothing in this world will ever change that. Marcus sat on the edge of the bed, his arm around Victoria, looking down at their daughter. She's perfect, he said. She's ours. Yeah. His voice was thick with emotion. She's ours. They sat like that for a long time, the three of them learning how to be a family. The first year was chaos, sleepless nights, endless diaper changes, a colicky baby who screamed for 3 hours every evening like clockwork. Victoria, who had run a $2 billion company, found herself completely unprepared for the demands of a newborn. But she wasn't alone. Ruth moved in for the first 3 months, teaching Victoria how to swaddle and burp and soothe. Marcus took over night feedings so Victoria could sleep. Destiny appointed herself official baby helper and took her role extremely seriously. And slowly, gradually, they found their rhythm. Victoria learned that she was actually good at 3 a.m. feedings. There was something peaceful about sitting in the dark, holding Eleanor against her chest, feeling the baby's heartbeat sync with her own. Those quiet hours became her favorite part of the day. She learned that she was terrible at bath time. Eleanor screamed like she was being murdered, and Victoria always ended up more soaked than the baby. Marcus took over that duty permanently. She learned that she loved reading bedtime stories. Not just to Eleanor, who was too young to understand, but to Destiny, who crawled into Victoria's lap every night and demanded just one more chapter until she fell asleep mid-sentence. She learned that family wasn't perfect. There were fights, disagreements, moments when she wanted to hide in her office and pretend the rest of the world didn't exist. But there was also laughter, joy, love that grew stronger with every passing day, and she learned finally how to be happy without waiting for it to end. On Eleanor's first birthday, they threw a party. Not a lavish affair with caterers and decorations and hundreds of guests. Just family. Ruth, Destiny. A few neighbors who had become friends. A chocolate cake with a single candle that Eleanor tried to grab with both hands. Victoria watched from the corner of the living room as Marcus helped Destiny hold Eleanor steady for the traditional smash the cake photo. Eleanor's face was covered in chocolate frosting. Destiny was giggling uncontrollably. Ruth was taking approximately 1,000 pictures. You okay? Victoria turned. Marcus had appeared beside her, leaving the cake smashing to Destiny and Ruth. I'm perfect. You look like you're about to cry. I cry at everything now. Haven't you noticed? I've noticed. Marcus slipped his arm around her waist. Want to tell me what's going on? Victoria watched her family celebrating in the chaos of her living room. A year ago, I was the loneliest person in Atlanta. I had money, power, everything anyone could want, and I would have traded it all for what I have right now. And now I have everything. She looked up at him. I have you. I have Eleanor. I have Destiny. I have Ruth. I have a life that's messy and complicated and absolutely nothing like what I planned. And I've never been happier. You know what's funny? I was just thinking the same thing. Great minds. Or fools in love. Probably both. Marcus kissed her. A soft kiss. A promise. I love you, Victoria Sterling. It was the first time he'd said it. 3 months into Eleanor's life, and he'd never actually spoken the words. Neither had she. They'd shown it in 1,000 ways, but the words had remained unspoken. Until now. I love you too, Marcus Thompson. Victoria felt tears sliding down her cheeks. I didn't think I knew how to love anyone. I thought that part of me was broken. But you fixed it. You and Destiny and Eleanor. You fixed me. You weren't broken. You were just waiting. Waiting for what? For us. Across the room, Eleanor shoved both hands into the cake and squealed with delight. Frosting went everywhere. Ruth laughed. Destiny cheered. The moment was perfect in its imperfection. "Daddy!" "Pretty lady," Destiny called out. "Come take pictures. Baby Ellie is making a mess." "Coming, princess." Marcus turned to Victoria. "Ready." "For what?" "For the rest of our lives." Victoria took his hand. "I've been ready since the day I met you. I just didn't know it yet." They walked toward their family together. The Henderson trial made headlines for 3 weeks. Victoria testified twice. She presented evidence. She answered questions. She watched the man who had tried to destroy her be destroyed instead. Henderson was convicted on 12 counts of embezzlement, 3 counts of wire fraud, and 2 counts of breach of fiduciary duty. He was sentenced to 15 years in federal prison. On the day of the sentencing, Victoria received a letter. No return address. No signature. Just 3 words written in shaky handwriting. "You were right." She never found out exactly what Henderson meant, whether he was admitting defeat, acknowledging her strength, or simply recognizing that she had outplayed him at every turn. It didn't matter. Victoria threw the letter away and went home to her family. The past was over. The future was waiting. On Victoria's 45th birthday, Marcus proposed. Not in a fancy restaurant, not with a 100-piece orchestra or fireworks or any of the elaborate gestures that wealthy people were supposed to expect. He proposed in the backyard, while Eleanor played in the sandbox and Destiny practiced cartwheels on the grass, and Ruth watched from the porch with a knowing smile. He got down on one knee, pulled out a ring that had belonged to his grandmother, and said the simplest words in the English language. "Marry me." Victoria looked at the ring, looked at Marcus, looked at the life she had built from the ashes of her loneliness. "Yes!" Destiny screamed with excitement. Eleanor clapped her hands, not understanding, but catching the joy. Ruth wiped tears from her eyes. And Victoria Sterling, soon to be. Victoria Sterling Thompson realized that the girl who had once dreamed of a normal life with a normal family had finally gotten everything she wished for. It just looked different than she'd imagined. Better. The wedding was small, 30 guests, a garden ceremony, no press, no photographers, except for the family friend who took pictures as a gift. Victoria wore white, not because tradition demanded it, but because she finally felt like she deserved it. A fresh start. A clean slate. A new beginning. Marcus wore a suit he'd bought himself, refusing Victoria's offer to have one custom made. "I want to look like me," he said, "not like someone pretending to be something I'm not." Destiny was the flower girl. She took her role so seriously that she walked down the aisle at approximately 1 step per minute, carefully placing each petal exactly where she wanted it. Eleanor was carried by Ruth, who cried through the entire ceremony and pretended she wasn't. The vows were simple. No elaborate speeches. No poetry. Just 2 people promising to love each other for the rest of their lives. "I, Victoria Sterling, take you, Marcus Thompson, to be my husband. I promise to love you when you're easy to love and when you're difficult. I promise to support your dreams and share your burdens. I promise to laugh with you, cry with you, and grow old with you. And I promise that no matter what challenges we face, I will face them beside you. Today. Tomorrow. Forever. I, Marcus Thompson, take you, Victoria Sterling, to be my wife. I promise to be your partner, your friend, and your family. I promise to remind you that you're worthy of love when you forget. I promise to hold your hand through the hard times and celebrate with you through the good times. I promise that you will never be alone again, not as long as I'm breathing, today, tomorrow, forever." They exchanged rings. They kissed. They became husband and wife. And somewhere Victoria liked to imagine 2 mothers were watching from heaven. Eleanor Rose Sterling, and whatever Keisha might have become if she'd been strong enough to stay. 2 women who had shaped the people their children became. 2 women whose absence had in some strange way led to this moment. Victoria looked up at the sky and whispered a silent thank you. Then she turned to her husband, took his hand, and walked into the rest of her life. 5 years later, Victoria stood at the window of her office at Sterling Capital. She still came in twice a week. Not to run the company, she'd fully transitioned leadership to a new CEO 2 years ago, but to advise, to mentor, to make sure her father's legacy continued to thrive. The city sprawled beneath her. Atlanta, her city, the place where she'd built an empire and found a family. Her phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. Dinner at 6. Destiny's making her famous spaghetti. Ellie says hi. Love you. Victoria smiled and typed back. Love you too. See you soon. She gathered her things and headed for the elevator. On the way down, she thought about everything that had brought her here. The loneliness, the desperation, the deal that should have been nothing but a transaction. She thought about Marcus, who had walked into her life as a janitor and become her everything. She thought about Destiny, now 11 years old, healthy and strong, dreaming of becoming a veterinarian. She thought about Eleanor, who was her father's daughter, in every way. Stubborn, determined, with a smile that could light up any room. She thought about Ruth, who had become the mother Victoria never had, who had taught her how to love and be loved in return. She thought about all the things she'd been afraid of, all the walls she'd built, all the years she'd spent convinced that she was destined to be alone. She had been so wrong. The elevator doors opened. Victoria walked through the lobby of Sterling Capital, past the security desk, past the reception area, past the spot where Marcus had once mopped floors at 2 a.m. Everything had started here, in this building, with a desperate man and a desperate woman, and a deal that neither of them understood. But it hadn't ended here. It had ended at home, with family, with love, with a life that was messy and imperfect and absolutely beautiful. Victoria stepped out into the Atlanta afternoon. The sun was warm. The sky was clear. The future was waiting. She had spent 40 years learning how to survive. Now she was finally learning how to live, and that made all this difference. Victoria climbed into her car, started the engine, and drove toward home. Toward Marcus. Toward Destiny and Eleanor and Ruth. Toward everything she'd ever wanted, but never believed she deserved. The Ice Queen was gone. In her place was something better. A wife. A mother. A woman who had finally discovered that the greatest wealth in the world wasn't money or power or success. It was love. And Victoria Sterling Thompson had more of it than she'd ever dreamed possible.